It felt like my head was going to explode all over the room.
I was at rock bottom. I mean, I was totally at rock bottom.
I said, God, this isn't fair. Leave this family alone.
Her life, it wasn't cut in half. It was cut down to 10%, and fast.
Next, 3 medical mysteries that defied the experts. 5-year-old Connor Rowley is plagued with a mysterious fever that won't go away. His doctors can do nothing for him, and his family fears for the worst.
I had one of the siblings ask me if Connor was going to die.
Tom Stampy thinks he has his whole life ahead of him, until a bizarre affliction turns his entire world upside down.
I didn't want anyone to see me like this because I really felt now I'm this freak.
And Linda Vola, an active woman her entire life. In a matter of days, she is overcome with crippling pain and vertigo, and no one can figure out why.
I actually had to help her walk out of the house. This was not the Linda that I knew.
When illness strikes, we look to doctors to give us answers. But what if they can't? For these unlucky patients, diagnosis is a mystery. September 10th, 1993. Connor Rowley is born. 8 pounds, 13 ounces. It is an especially joyful time for his family. Just a year earlier, they were mourning the loss of another child.
We had another son named Sean, and he died from some lung complications when he was about 17 days old. And so when Connor came along the year after that, everyone, all the siblings were just protective of him.
Oh, he's a clown. He's a great kid. I guess you could call him the baby of the family, but he's just one of the gang.
He's very playful, very inquisitive. He's got a very, very special place in my heart.
Connor is a perfectly healthy little boy and gives his parents no worries. Until his 5th birthday, when they notice something strange.
So his friends all came over and we did the cake and everything.
Connor was not himself. When the other kids were playing, Connor would not participate as much as you would normally expect him to do.
Later that night, Connor seems to get worse.
He was sick to his stomach, and then he had a fever. And so we waited a couple days to see how that would turn out. It lingered for a period of time after that.
At first, Chris and Dave assume it's just a stomach bug. But as the week goes on, Connor's symptoms evolve into a weird pattern.
Every day he would wake up and feel pretty good. And then in the afternoon he would begin to spike a fever, and Connor's fevers would go anywhere from 101 to about 104. And then in the evening the fever would break and he would be just drenched in sweat.
There'd be a puddle of sweat on the small of his back, and it just literally, his sheets would be soaked.
I'd never seen that happen with any of my kids before.
It took a little while for us to recognize that this was not the flu. This was something a little bit different.
Chris calls their family doctor and describes Connor's symptoms. He says it's probably nothing to worry about, but tells her to watch Connor carefully. 5 days later, Connor is no better. In fact, he's worse.
He would have severe tummy cramps several times a day. It was so severe that he couldn't even stand.
He would be doubled over in the fetal position on the floor. It's heartbreaking to see a child at that age curled up on the floor.
It didn't get better. He didn't show any sign of improving, so my mom alarms began to go off.
This time, Chris takes Connor in to get checked out.
The doctor was thinking in the beginning that Connor might have had a parasite or a bacterial, so they did a blood draw.
While they wait for the test results, Connor is put on an antibiotic, just in case.
All the cultures came back negative. They didn't see any bacteria that they could find or any parasites.
Their doctor is mystified. To be safe, he keeps Connor on the antibiotics for a few more weeks, but the 5-year-old doesn't get any better.
I could be at the grocery store with him and he'd suddenly just bend down and lay on the floor.
It got to a point, honestly, that Connor could not even, walk 100 feet without getting tired. You could tell he was wearing down. And you're wondering what's going on inside this boy. And it was quite a mystery.
Eventually, it gets so bad that the Rowleys are forced to pull Connor out of school. Over the next 3 weeks, his painful symptoms persist. Stumped, Connor's doctor refers him to a pediatric specialist, Dr. Scott McKercher.
Whenever a patient like Connor has fevers for a while, you start wondering, okay, is this something simple like a pneumonia or a sinus infection or a bladder infection, or is there something else brewing? And I said, you know what, we need to look for some more unusual things for this fever.
Dr. McKercher orders dozens of tests.
He took a lot of blood from Connor, and we were not prepared for that. We were just shocked. They took 8 vials of blood.
We looked for just a variety of different things. We looked for lupus or rheumatoid arthritis. We did some tests for typhoid and paratyphoid, which are bacteria infections that can sometimes cause unusual fevers. And unfortunately, really all of those tests came back normal.
Chris's frustration begins to grow. She can no longer just sit by and watch as her son gets worse and worse.
She would spend then the late hours at night doing the research, keeping more logs, keeping more notes, finding out anything she could about anything she heard a doctor mention, just so she could try to better understand what might be going on.
We found out that night sweats are a sign of some of the different chronic diseases, things like cancers, things like juvenile rheumatoid arthritis. And so it made us all very alarmed.
In the meantime, Connor is virtually wasting away. In the 2 months since his symptoms first emerged, he's lost 10% of his body weight. The Rowleys feel like their son is dying right in front of their eyes. Racked with worry, Chris and Dave pack Connor into the car and drive 170 miles to a research hospital for a complete workup.
My largest fear for Connor was that he would have cancer, quite honestly.
They had all kinds of people seeing him. They had GI people, that is gastroenterologists. They had infectious disease people. They had hematologists or blood doctors take a look at him.
You know, we just had to eliminate all the things that he didn't have.
Connor's severe stomach pains raise suspicion among the new team of doctors, so they order a series of gastrointestinal exams to get a picture of what is going on inside the boy. First up is a barium X-ray.
A barium swallow test is trying to take a look at how fluids goes through your intestinal tract. So they take an X-ray, so you're getting the liquid going down your esophagus, and then you're watching it splash into your stomach through into the intestinal tract.
But the results of the barium test are inconclusive.
It showed that in the upper part of the intestine there was just some prominence of what they call the folds, which is kind of the lining. It was really pretty nonspecific though. The rest of his small bowel series, they interpreted as being normal.
Connor's hospital stay stretches on for 15 days. Finally, all the blood has been drawn and the poking and prodding is over. The Rowleys are on pins and needles waiting to hear the results.
Everything came back negative. And so they told us that that was the last thing they could do for us.
We were told that he should go back home, see what manifests itself over a period of time, whether it gets worse or gets better.
Chris and Dave are crushed. They make the 3-hour drive home with their 5-year-old son, who's mysteriously getting sicker every day.
I had one of the siblings ask me if Connor was going to die. And at that point, we didn't know. But yet, for the kids, having lost a brother, they were already preparing themselves to lose another one.
Five-year-old Connor Rowley has seen dozens of doctors over the last 5 months, but none of them can explain his chronic fevers and frequent agonizing stomach cramps. Desperate, his parents reach out to their community.
I decided that I needed to somehow document where we had been, and I needed to figure out how maybe getting some more public input might help shed some light.
Chris wrote an article on Connor. It was a great way for us to get his name out there and try to draw some attention.
The article runs in the Des Moines Register, Iowa's largest newspaper. It catches the attention of pediatric gastroenterologist Dr. Warren Bishop.
I was reading the Sunday newspaper, and I came across an article about a young child who had been having mysterious symptoms.
By chance, Connor is referred to the University of Iowa hospitals, where Dr. Bishop works.
Connor was very, very anemic. He didn't have enough red blood cells, and that made him pale and weak. And the question was, where could that blood be going? He wasn't having bleeding from his nose or coughing up blood, and that really meant that most likely the blood loss was a subtle blood loss through his intestine.
When we arrived in Iowa City and met Dr. Bishop for the first time, he told us that he had read about Connor, and he immediately said, it's Crohn's. And I took a step back because I'm thinking, who is this guy? We've been through all these tests, we've looked at all these biopsies. How can he be so confident that it's Crohn's?
Crohn's is a chronic bowel disease affecting at least 1 in 14,000 people. With Crohn's, the body's immune system is overactive and can mistake harmless bacteria normally found in the intestines for foreign substances. White blood cells invade the lining of the intestines, where they cause inflammation. Left untreated, Crohn's can lead to ulcers, infection, and even death.
The daily fevers, the abdominal pain that he was having, and then his anemia. I think all those factors together made me really think about Crohn's disease.
But there's one key factor that does not add up. Crohn's sufferers usually have severe diarrhea, a symptom that Connor never had. Nonetheless, Dr. Bishop is suspicious. He consults with Dr. McKercher, and they decide it's time for another barium X-ray. Right away, it's clear that in the 7 months since the last one was done, Connor's intestines have changed dramatically.
This one showed a narrow spot in the upper part of his small intestine that strongly suggested Crohn's disease.
But the location of the abnormality could also be a sign of something far scarier for the Rowleys.
It was in an unusual place for Crohn's, but it was in a place that intestinal lymphoma can occur.
Lymphoma is a type of cancer that originates in the lymphatic system, but can attack any organ, including the small intestine. While Crohn's is dangerous, lymphoma is a killer. Now more than ever, the Rowleys are in a race against time to get an accurate diagnosis.
We needed to go after that segment of intestine in the middle of his bowel that was too far away, too far down to reach with an endoscope. And so the approach then had to be surgical.
On October 9th, 1999, 1 year after his symptoms began, Connor is wheeled into the OR for exploratory surgery.
We hadn't been separated very much during any of the hospital's procedures, and so it was scary to just watch him go.
We were very nervous, very scared. We also knew that in order to really find the answer, this was the way to do it.
During the 2-hour operation, the surgeon examines all 12 feet of Connor's small intestine.
The surgeon found that segment of intestine was very thickened and red and angry looking. Connor also had enlarged lymph nodes associated with the inflamed portion of the intestine.
The inflamed lymph nodes are a sign of lymphoma, but the surgeon sends a tissue sample down to the lab to be certain. While he waits for the results, he steps out to talk to Chris and Dave.
The surgeon came down and told us that they suspected it was lymphoma. And that was a real shocker. We were devastated. I mean, we were scared to death.
First reaction is you just want to cry. Just leave me alone, cry. But how could it be that it took this long to get there?
Chris and Dave Rowley are in agony as they sit outside an operating room waiting to find out if their 6-year-old son, Connor, has Crohn's disease or cancer. His surgeons have taken a biopsy, and now they've gone back into the OR for another look.
They actually had to take the intestine out and look at the whole intestine and inspect it by hand all the way through.
Within the hour, the results from the biopsy are back, and they're shocked by the finding.
The biopsy showed no evidence of any cancerous tissue present. And it was a tremendous relief to me that this really was not lymphoma. And we could go back and tell the parents, you don't have to worry, Connor's going to be okay.
I don't remember the surgeon's exact words, but the sense of it was that it wasn't lymphoma, that we did not find malignancy, and we believe it's Crohn's. And it was good to get the lymphoma fear entirely off the table. So we finally got that definite diagnosis.
We told Connor that we had an answer, that it was Crohn's disease, and that it was something that we would learn about, and that we could start treating him for it right away, and that he would start to get better.
The only thing I remember is when I came back after the surgery, they had welcome home banners everywhere. That was pretty cool.
After months of questions and helpless waiting, the diagnosis of Crohn's comes as a tremendous relief. And it's not a moment too soon.
If Connor had not been diagnosed when he was, he would have gotten sicker. And eventually, he probably would have required surgery for a bowel obstruction, because that narrow part of the intestine was getting narrower and narrower, and the intestine can literally scar shut.
The Rowleys learn that Connor's intestines haven't sustained such severe damage. His Crohn's can be kept at bay with powerful anti-inflammatory drugs similar to aspirin.
He's on daily medication even though he's not sick, and the purpose of that is to prevent flare-ups, and it's working. He's not had any flare-ups at all.
Connor is doing fantastic. He's a regular 11-year-old boy. He's on the baseball team, he's on the football team, he likes sports, he's active.
We've essentially had no symptoms now for about 5 years, and that's been wonderful. They consider his Crohn's in remission.
But for an ailment that afflicts so many people, Chris and Dave had to wonder why no one could identify it earlier in Connor.
The Crohn's disease only revealed itself upon repetition of some tests that had already been done several times. So it made it easier to diagnose as time went on.
Go deep. I'm gonna hit you there.
We learned over and over again that you can't really make a diagnosis in a vacuum. You have to really work at it.
Nobody knows all the answers, but if you work together as a team and work towards finding that cure, that can be very powerful.
Connor Rowley was very young when he first fell ill. But 21-year-old Tom Stampy is the picture of health, and he has a future that looks bright, when out of the blue, his symptoms strike.
I was engaged to my high school sweetheart. I was working for a nice company out in Long Island, and everything was great. Couldn't get any better. Until August of 1983. And I was starting to get these headaches, these very strange, kind of like a migraine headache, but extremely, extremely strong.
At first I actually thought it was his eyes or his vision, and it was strange because he never had them before. So the first day or so, he took over-the-counter medication.
Didn't seem to really help. So after a couple of weeks of having headaches, I went down to my regular doctor, and he wasn't too alarmed. He said, well, you know, it could be migraines. So he gave me some type of pain pill for the migraines. So I just said, okay, that's great.
But the migraine pills don't help. Tom's headaches get worse, and after a few weeks, a bizarre new symptom strikes.
I started getting twitching in my head, where my head started twitching to the right.
And I thought, gee, maybe he slept in a draft or something like that and got a stiff neck. But it got progressively worse.
Over the next few weeks, the twitching was more like pulling. And it was pulling only to one side. It wasn't like it was twitching right and twitching left. It was just twitching to the right-hand side. So now what the heck is going on with me? I mean, first headaches, now this. After about a week or two of the pulling, my head just stuck on this right shoulder like this. And that was it.
And he says, it's just like something's holding my neck and I can't do anything about it.
So I go to my GP, who says to me, you probably pulled a muscle. So he sends me to physical therapy. So I go to physical therapy for about, I'd say 2 to 3 months, which helped with some of the pain. However, still stuck on the shoulder and not knowing why. Now I started getting nervous, like this might be a little bit more difficult than a pulled muscle.
Physical therapy brings temporary relief from the pain, but Tom's neck muscles are still seizing and contorted, and getting worse.
You have to imagine, it was pulling down on one side and it was pushing up on this side. I felt like I was in a boxing ring.
Just going to work each day has become a life-threatening ordeal for Tom.
And I used to be afraid of him driving because with his head like that, it was dangerous.
It's about a 25 to 30 mile ride from where my house is to my job. So I'm driving on the parkway like this with a big mirror for a rearview mirror so that way I can see so I don't kill myself or anybody else.
Tom realizes he can't go on like this much longer. He soon returns to his doctor, hoping he might have some new insight.
I went back to the GP and I said, I'm still stuck like this. So I said, you know, maybe I should send you to a sports and medicine doctor that specializes more with this type of symptoms.
This new doctor has a diagnosis, but it doesn't help Tom very much.
You have torticollis, which means that your head is turned, which is like, okay, well, my finger is up. I mean, head is turned doesn't mean anything to me. What is, that's great, but how do you make your head straight? So we did therapy again for a little while longer, and it helped with the pain, but it didn't help the illness.
After this second round of therapy fails, Tom begins to wonder if he'll ever recover. But this is just the beginning of a downward spiral.
I started missing more and more work. They started questioning my ability as an employee.
Tom's job sent him to the physician at the place that he worked, and they basically told them that there was nothing wrong with him. That was it.
He said, either you work or they let you go. So I couldn't perform, I couldn't work. So they fired me.
That was a very bad time for Thomas. That was a time he was depressed. He spent a lot of time up in his room, and he was really heartbroken.
And just when Tom thinks it can't get any worse, comes the final devastating blow.
Right before Christmas, my fiancée said, what kind of man are you going to be? You're not going to be able to support me. I don't know how long you're going to be like this. You may be like this forever, and I can't handle it. My Christmas present that year was so long farewell. It was the most dramatic blow in my entire life.
For almost an entire year, Tom Stampy has been living with his neck muscles contorted and twisted such that his head appears stuck to his shoulder. He is disfigured and in pain, and none of his doctors can tell him why.
I mean, I was at rock bottom. I was totally at rock bottom. I didn't want to see anybody. I cut myself off from everyone. I wouldn't return phone calls because I really felt now I'm this freak.
Then Tom's family notices something strange happening at night.
Well, sometimes I'd walk into his room and his head would look kind of straight, And I'd say to my husband, go in there and look. Does Tom's head look straight?
His head is straight. This is a mirror. This is great. This is fantastic. And then the multi-second that I would wake up, my head would go back.
And the pain is getting worse. One morning, it becomes unbearable.
My father sat down on my bed, and just from the pressure of him sitting on the bed, the pain that shot through my whole body was, I let out a scream, and I'm pretty tough. And my father said, that's it, this is ridiculous, and took me over to the local hospital. I met my first neurologist, who did every test in the world.
For the first time in Tom's long medical saga, a doctor seems to take him seriously.
And then he said, well, your muscles are very contracted. What I'm going to do is I'm going to inject Valium into you. I was on about 120 milligrams of Valium a day.
Valium is a drug normally given orally to reduce anxiety. The usual maximum dosage is 30 milligrams a day. Tom is getting 4 times that, injected directly into his muscles.
As a nurse, I felt the dosage that they gave Tom was not even livable. Like, how could you function normally?
I was in the local hospital, I'd say about a month. My head was starting to come off my shoulder to about here. And to me, that was, I mean, this is the first time this is any movement in my head at all. This was fantastic. I was also practically in a coma because I was on so much Valium.
With this slight improvement, the doctor discharges Tom.
And he said, okay, this is the best I can do. This is going to be you and the rest of your life. And I was blown away. I'm like, no, this can't be, this can't be.
Tom is crushed.
You know, a mother thinks, I had a good life. Why can't it be me? Why does it have to be my young son,
Then Tom's mother stumbles across the name of someone who might be able to help her son.
This nun that I worked with, I had told about Tom's symptoms. And she said a friend of hers had a similar thing, and she went to see a Dr. Mitchell Bryn.
After suffering for 2 years with this mysterious, painful affliction, Tom makes an appointment to see Dr. Bryn.
We're sitting in the waiting room, and here comes this young, red-headed doctor with a beard and a mustache, and very friendly.
When Thomas came into the office, his head was turned to the side. He was in obvious pain. He was very frustrated by his condition, and he was really searching very hard to find out what was wrong with him.
He said, Tom, I've heard a lot about you. It's a pleasure. Tell me about your symptoms.
I did scans of his head and his neck. I did a spinal tap to look at his spinal fluid. I performed a neurological examination, looked at his medical records, and ultimately I diagnosed him with having cervical dystonia.
Cervical dystonia is a neurological disorder where the neck muscles contract involuntarily, resulting in abnormal posture of the head and neck. It's thought to be caused by a malfunction of the basal ganglia, the deep brain structures that control movement. It may be triggered by injury or disease, but for about half the cases, there is no known cause.
I'm like, I really have a disease.
Tom was ecstatic that this doctor put a face on it, told him a name, knew information about it.
Dr. Bryn also explains why Tom's neck would often straighten out when he slept.
Movement disorders are very interesting and unique in the sense that when the brain goes to sleep, the movement disorder will typically go away and resolve. And that's one of the reasons why years ago physicians would say, oh, it's psychogenic, it's psychological, because when you go to sleep, it goes away.
I'm like, fantastic, this is great, fantastic, give me the shot. Give me the anti-serum, whatever, and let's get out of here. This is fantastic. And he's like, well, that's the bad part.
I sat with him and explained to him and his family that at this time there was no cure.
For 2.5 years, Tom Stampy has lived in excruciating pain, with his neck muscles seized up and his head stuck to his shoulder. And no one has been able to tell him why. Now, finally, Dr. Mitchell Bryn has given Tom a diagnosis.
I felt fantastic because at least now I can put a name. I can go, someone says to me, what's wrong with you? I have dystonia.
Tom is suffering from cervical dystonia, a neuromuscular condition that affects 1 in 11,000. There is no cure, but Dr. Bryn is testing a controversial new treatment.
And he said, Tom, there's a new thing out. It's not approved, but I think that you'd be a really good candidate for it.
The drug is Botox, which will later find popular use cosmetically. Botox is derived from the toxic bacteria botulinum. Found in contaminated food, it causes the deadly paralytic illness known as botulism. But in its purified form, medical-grade botulinum causes muscles to relax.
The nice thing about Botox is that you inject it directly into the muscle where you want it to have its effect.
Dr. Bryn then administered I think it was about 25 or 30 shots on each side of my neck. I felt like a little tingle, but nothing strong. It's like, well, you know what? Your neck's been this way for a long time, so don't get discouraged.
3 months later, Tom returns to Dr. Bryn's office for a second round of shots.
I go back to Columbia, again with the 30 or 35 shots on each side. And all of a sudden, my head started to move slightly, like about maybe a half inch or 3/4 of an inch, but it moved.
Oh, I just was so thrilled. I kept thinking, this is an answer to my prayers. Oh, this is wonderful.
During that first year, he was treated approximately every 3 months at gradually increasing doses. By the end of about the third treatment, his head was finally straight, and he had mobility so that he could look both to the left and to the right. The pain was pretty much relieved, and he was feeling much better.
It was absolute freedom. I called up Dr. Bryn, and I thanked him. I mean, he turned my life completely around.
Thomas's improvement was so dramatic that it was really very much a good feeling.
Now it's been 13 years since I've had a shot of botulism in my neck. Hopefully I'll never need Botox again, but if I do, it's there. No doctor will sign off that I'm cured. It's in what Dr. Bryn calls a semi-remission.
Tom is in remission, but without Dr. Bryn's diagnosis, his condition could have gotten worse.
Back in the time when Thomas's symptoms began, there wasn't very much known, and it was a very rare, mysterious disorder that was underappreciated and therefore underdiagnosed.
Today, life for Tom and his family is better than ever, but he'll never forget his difficult journey to diagnosis.
Today, Tom is the president of the Dystonia Foundation, does a lot of fundraising so that someone else isn't in the same predicament that he was in.
It's a whole new life. You know, he said, I've never been so happy.
It was a horrible experience what I went through in my life, but had I not gone through that, I would not have met my beautiful wife, had my 3 beautiful daughters, who I love to death. I think it made me a stronger person. I think it made me a better person. I don't think I would change anything.
Tom Stampy's affliction was obvious and easy to see. But when Linda Vola started feeling aches and pains, she assumed she was just overdoing it, much like her husband.
Charlie was working so hard. He would travel, he'd come home, and he just wouldn't feel well.
I was having some joint pain and some muscle pain, lower back pain, but I figured that was just normal condition for my age.
You get old, you get aches, you get pains.
Charlie is determined to stay active, but later that year he goes on a business trip and falls ill.
I was coming from Lima, Peru to Bogota, Colombia, and I got to Bogota and I was ill for 3 or 4 days in a hotel room in Colombia, just in terrible shape.
And we'd start saying, you're getting old, you gotta watch out, you can't do too much, and we'd keep doing it anyway.
Although Charlie is struggling with his health, Linda seems to be in better condition. Until they go on vacation that fall. Suddenly, Linda experiences an unusual pain that she's never felt before.
I went to get off the plane and I couldn't get up out of my seat. I had such awful, awful pain in my lower back, in my hip area, that Charlie almost had to carry me off the plane.
When I heard that she physically could not move the lower half of her body, I was nervous, but at the time it was just pretty much an isolated experience.
But the pain doesn't go away. It gets worse. And later that week, Linda makes an appointment to see her doctor.
And he said, oh, you probably just strained some muscles. You'll be fine. Just relax. Go away. So I probably waited about a month, and the pain was not going away.
So she was thinking that the back problems that she was having could be corrected by going to a chiropractor.
And he would do massages in the area, do a little electrical stimulation.
Linda visits the chiropractor almost every week for 3 years. It brings her some relief from the agonizing pain. Then, one day, on her way to visit a friend, something alarming happens.
I started feeling just very strange. It was dizzy and off balance. And I'm driving the car. So I just concentrated. I got myself home.
She went to bed early that night, and that was the end of it, and we figured that in a couple days she'd be fine. She did not get better. It did not change.
So I went to see my doctor.
Linda's doctor suspects that she has an inner ear infection. The inner ear contains the mechanism that keeps a person balanced, and when it's injured, a patient can experience dizziness. The doctor immediately starts her on a course of antibiotics.
She said, if you take that, it'll go away very soon.
And it just wasn't going away. And I think that made her nervous.
The drugs don't help Linda, and within 2 weeks, the dizzy spells are accompanied by intense headaches.
They would kind of come and go to the point where they felt like they were with me all the time. And it was a pressure headache. It kind of feels like, your head's expanding.
The headaches are almost constant. And 6 weeks after they begin, Linda has an especially scary episode.
She was curled up in the bed, almost in a fetal position, and looking frightened.
It felt like my head was going to explode all over the room.
You can look at a person and see in their eyes that it's time to go to the hospital. When the fright is there and they don't understand what's going on with them, and they know it's not going to get better.
So he rushed me to the hospital. And they immediately give me a CAT scan. With such a bad headache, they wanted to make sure that I wasn't bleeding in the brain. I thought at that point that maybe I had an aneurysm or possibly some type of a tumor.
You start to think that, well, maybe this is something really bad. Maybe this is a brain tumor. And that was a little bit frightening. It was frightening for her and for me.
To their surprise, all the tests come back negative. The doctors can't find anything wrong with Linda, and they send her home. But over the next month, the dizziness and the headaches get so bad that Linda is forced to quit her job.
Things change pretty drastically. Just the general day-to-day thing. Driving a car is out. I love to go ballroom dancing, gone. Just normal going for a walk is difficult.
She had a cane. I had never seen her like this. This was not the Linda that I knew.
Her life, it wasn't cut in half. It was cut down to 10% and fast.
For 2 months, Linda Vola has had strange dizzy spells and excruciating headaches that no doctor can explain. She's become a virtual invalid, and her husband is determined to find out why.
However long it takes, however many doctors we have to go to, whatever resources have to be thrown at this, we will find the answer.
Linda and Charlie decide to go back to her doctor. He immediately refers her to Dr. Reed Lockman, an ear, nose, and throat specialist.
I saw Linda back in the fall of '04, and she came to see me with basically feeling dizzy.
Dr. Lockman is troubled by how long Linda's dizziness has lasted.
Somebody who's relatively young and healthy shouldn't have it for a couple months, and it shouldn't be so disabling to you. So I had concerns. I really was concerned.
Dr. Lockman also orders another round of tests. None of them show any abnormalities, until he gets the results of the MRI.
It did show some inflammation in the hearing nerve and then the balance nerve that was in the brain, and that was, again, perplexing as to what it could possibly be.
The MRI suggests there's an inflammation in Linda's brain, but it doesn't explain why.
So he sent me to a neurologist, and he went like this with my eyes, and he made me walk, but he said it's not a neurological problem. So I went back to see Dr. Lockman again. He kind of shook his head and said, it's something that's kind of beyond what I do.
Whenever you have a somewhat unusual finding of inflammatory changes inside the brain, you have to be suspicious of something a little bit more odd going on.
And he said, you need to go to see an infectious disease doctor.
And when she said that to me, I said, infectious disease? What could you possibly have?
In November 2004, 5 months after her first dizzy spell, Linda meets infectious disease specialist Dr. Leon Smith.
Well, the first thing I did is get a long history. I spent a lot of time getting history. Where you've been, how you've been, where do you live, what kind of water do you drink.
He asked how many people came to our houses, were they from other countries, who visited us often, what trips we had taken.
He said, we will get to the bottom of this. He said those exact words, we will get to the bottom of this. And we knew he would.
And we went all out. Her lab test must have cost her thousands of dollars. And you don't like to run a lab cost like this. But we were trying to find the answer to a very mysterious disease.
The answer comes 2 weeks later. Linda's test results are ready.
Dr. Smith starts going through the list. Very interesting.
We went down the line, down the line, down the line.
Pages and pages of results came back on all the tests that he took on me, on some exotic things that I never would have imagined.
And finally, in the bottom of the list was the result. And I was skeptical of what we found because it's so rare in this country.
He says, this is very, very odd.
Linda's diagnosis was brucellosis.
Brucellosis is an infectious disease caused by the bacteria Brucella. The bacteria can enter the body through unpasteurized dairy or tainted meat products. Once inside, Brucella invades the cells of the joints, muscles, and nerves. If the disease reaches the heart or brain, it can be fatal. Brucellosis is extremely rare in the U.S., affecting only about 1 to 200 patients a year. It's more common in places like Asia, the Middle East, and South America. It can be spread through blood transfusions or sexual contact.
I was flabbergasted when he told me that I had brucellosis.
She was, in a weird way, somewhat happy.
That was a great day. A diagnosis at last.
If the diagnosis were not made, she would have been more of an invalid. It is a relapsing disease, goes on for a lifetime.
Linda is diagnosed just in time. The bacteria has already attacked her nervous system, causing her balance problems. She starts on a course of powerful antibiotics, but she still has questions.
It didn't make any sense to me. How could I have this very rare infectious bacteria in my system? I found this article on the internet, and I read every word of it. The first place that this Brucella bacteria goes into is your lower back. And I'm thinking and I'm going back. 3.5 years before, when I couldn't get off that plane, that's when this started.
Suddenly, it all makes sense. Shortly before Linda's back pain started, Charlie was sick in South America. Now Linda wonders whether Charlie could be the carrier.
I don't think Charlie really thought he had it, but the more I talked to him, the more it made him think that it was a possibility.
Charlie agrees to get tested, but first they have to convince Dr. Smith.
He says, statistically, this is almost impossible. So there's 100 or 200 cases a year, 2 people together, same family, almost impossible. But they said, all right, well, we'll test you anyway.
4 months after Linda's diagnosis, Dr. Smith has the results of Charlie's blood tests, and they're shocking.
And Dr. Smith says, we look at your brucellosis test, and your brucellosis is 50% higher than Linda's.
I was very surprised.
The level of bacteria in Charlie's blood tells Dr. Smith that Charlie was the first to be infected.
I believe that Charlie got the disease in South America from food, because he had a definite episode in South America of fever. He probably brought it back and gave it to his wife.
Dr. Smith puts Charlie on the same medication as Linda. They're both getting better, but brucellosis is tenacious and recovery can be a slow process.
The most important thing that I got out of this whole experience is that you are in charge of your own health care. You hire people as consultants, and they are called doctors, but you are the person who is in charge of your health care. If you wait for someone else to move this along, you'll die waiting.